Hello, Leo. Do you believe that luck isn't random, but that the universe has been waiting for this exact moment to move in your favor? This is not a casual horoscope reading. It's a sacred transmission channeled through eternal mindfulness, created for the one who's been quietly searching for a sign. And no, your presence here isn't by chance. You've been guided. If your heart has felt heavy lately, if your path has felt uncertain, if you've been asking the universe for something, a shift, a message, a miracle, then this is it. You, dear Leo, were born under the sun, the symbol of brilliance, vitality, and destiny. But even the brightest light needs time to recharge. Lately, perhaps, you've felt unseen, unappreciated, or simply tired of giving your all while receiving little in return. The stars have heard this. Your ancestors have seen this. And now, the shift begins. Right now, your ruling planet, the Sun, is aligning with Uranus and Jupiter in a rare, electric formation. This is not ordinary astrology. This is divine disruption. A reset. A massive up-leveling in your career, finances, emotional balance, and soul mission. And if you lean in, if you stay with me through this reading, you'll understand exactly why everything had to unfold the way it did, and what incredible reward is now on its way to you. Before we go deeper, take a deep breath. Drop into your heart space. Ask yourself gently, if something beautiful and unexpected were about to happen in your life, would you be open to receive it? Now, tell me in the comments, what angel number have you been seeing lately? 111? 444? 717? These numbers are messages, clues, echoes of alignment. Drop them below, not just to claim your connection, but to activate your receiving field. This is how we co-create with the universe. Together. And let me take this moment to say, from the deepest part of my heart, thank you for being here. Every like, every comment, every share, and every subscription expands this sacred circle we're building here at Eternal Mindfulness. Your presence fuels this mission, and your energy is the reason we're able to keep showing up with messages that change lives. Leo, you are not just watching this video. You're stepping into a portal. You've outgrown the version of yourself that was content with crumbs. The universe knows it. You know it. And today marks the beginning of something greater, not because you waited long enough, but because you chose to rise. Stay with me until the end. I promise, what's coming next will not only unlock clarity, it might just change everything. When the energy of May begins to accelerate, it does not do so with chaos, but with intention. For Leo, this month's shifting tide is not a storm to be feared, it is the very wind that lifts your wings. And while it may appear sudden, even disruptive, these moments of intensity are often the universe's most effective way of reminding you, you are alive, and it's time to move. The imagery of the chariot and the tower is not random. These archetypes mirror the spiritual anatomy of movement, the external speed of life matched with the internal courage to break through self-imposed boundaries. Leo, you are not new to fire. You were born of it. But even fire needs direction. The chariot calls upon your willpower, your clarity, and your inner alignment. It says, let's go, not in circles, but towards something greater. But the Tower? That's the sacred interruption. It clears what's false so your path is no longer blocked by illusions. And while the Tower may appear destructive on the surface, it is, in essence, deeply compassionate. It removes with precision what no longer serves your evolution. Sometimes, you will not be given time to prepare. The call will come unexpectedly, an email, a conversation, a silence that suddenly speaks volumes. And in that moment, the question isn't, was I ready? It becomes, am I willing to respond with truth, even if that means letting go? Leo energy is bold, but not reckless. You feel things deeply. You calculate. You care. But at times, you delay your own ascension by waiting for the perfect conditions. What this month whispers to you, or perhaps shouts through circumstances, is that perfection is not the requirement for movement. Presence is. You see, not every opportunity will knock twice. Some doors are time-sensitive because they are not just doors, they are initiations. When something ends abruptly or appears as an unexpected twist, it is rarely about punishment. It is almost always a realignment. And there is a quiet wisdom in learning how to lean into change rather than resisting it. Like leaves falling without struggle when autumn arrives, so too must we allow what no longer clings to fall away, with grace. There's a subtle teaching here about trust. Not the loud kind we proclaim with affirmations, but the quiet, embodied trust that flows like a gentle river beneath all things. The kind of trust that says, even if I don't see the full path, I will take the next step. That stillness inside action is where true power lives. You don't need to rush. But you also don't need to wait for a sign that is already pulsing through your intuition. In ancient philosophies, it is said that true freedom comes not when you control outcomes, but when you no longer fear them. When your decisions are rooted not in panic, but in presence. And perhaps this is the real gift of this month's energy, not just a victory you can point to, but a shift in how you meet change altogether. So, as you feel the rising pulse of transformation, ask yourself not, will this be safe, but will this be real? Let authenticity become your compass, even if the terrain is unfamiliar. Because the most meaningful changes in your life rarely come with certainty, but they always come with growth. And if you're standing at a crossroads now, unsure whether to leap or linger, remember this. Sometimes the universe doesn't need you to be completely ready. It just needs your yes. Quiet, brave, and full of heart. There's a quiet kind of strength that comes not from charging forward, but from showing up every day, consistently, honestly, even when no one is watching. That's the kind of strength Leo has been embodying in recent months. You've been tending to something, maybe it was a vision, a project, your healing, or simply the act of staying afloat, and now, that effort is beginning to bear fruit. What you're about to experience isn't luck in the conventional sense. It's the return of energy, the natural consequence of cause and effect. Just as a tree doesn't bloom overnight, neither does a life built on purpose, patience, and quiet discipline. The energy of the Eight of Pentacles reveals the essence of devotion, not flashy, not urgent, but deeply aligned with long-term fulfillment. It's the reminder that progress isn't always visible at first glance, like seeds breaking through soil before they ever touch sunlight. In the same way, Leo, your dedication has been unfolding behind the scenes, and this month, the world finally begins to catch up to your vibration. A contract, a payment, an invitation, or a breakthrough idea may arise seemingly out of nowhere, but you'll know the truth. It's been on its way for a long time. The presence of the Justice card reinforces a universal principle, that nothing we offer with integrity is ever lost. Every act of effort, every moment you chose to rise when it was easier to quit, has been witnessed, not by the outside world, perhaps, but by the deeper intelligence within your life. And it is from that witnessing that your reward begins to flow. This isn't about karma in any punitive sense. It's about natural alignment, the return of energy to its rightful source. And in your case, Leo, that source is you. When Ace of Pentacles enters the reading, we're reminded of the power of beginnings, not from scratch, but from readiness. This card often appears when the ground is finally fertile enough to support something tangible. Whether it's an investment, a move, a new role, or even a lifestyle shift, you're being handed something of value, and with it, the responsibility to nurture it wisely. That may mean rethinking how you spend, not just your money, but your time, your attention, your emotional energy. The call here is subtle but essential. Don't just attract abundance, learn to hold it. This is also a time to care for the vessel that carries your vision, your body. Not with punishment or harsh routines, but with care rooted in awareness. You don't need a radical transformation. Start with what's manageable, a consistent walk, mindful breathing, more greens on your plate, fewer screens before bed. These aren't small habits, they are sacred practices that recalibrate your nervous system and return you to your center. Each act of self-respect strengthens your inner authority, the very essence of Leo energy. Golden hues, particularly soft gold or golden yellow, may feel especially supportive during this time. This color activates your solar plexus, the energy center associated with willpower, confidence, and personal identity. Surround yourself with this tone when you feel your self-trust wavering. It's not just visual, it's energetic reinforcement of your own light. In times like these, one teaching remains quietly powerful. When you act without clinging to outcomes, the results often surpass expectation. Just as a flower does not bloom faster by force, your growth is unfolding at its exact pace. Your only job is to stay present, stay real, and stay open. Because what's arriving now is not just a financial or professional reward, it's the reflection of who you've been becoming all along. There's a kind of love that doesn't shout, doesn't chase, doesn't try to prove itself, it simply exists. And in its quiet existence, it begins to restore everything we thought we had lost. This month, Leo, your heart is being invited back into that gentle space, where love isn't performance, pressure, or perfection, it's presence. When the Ten of Cups appears alongside the Lovers and the Ace of Cups, the message is clear. Your emotional world is realigning not just for temporary joy, but for deep, soul-level nourishment. You've loved deeply before, maybe too deeply for those who didn't know how to receive it. Your passion, your devotion, your fierce loyalty. They're beautiful traits, but they can exhaust you when they aren't met with reciprocity. What's shifting now isn't just who you love or who loves you, it's how you love. You're learning that real connection doesn't deplete, it replenishes. It holds space. It speaks truth. It heals in its silence as much as in its words. Whether you're single, partnered, or somewhere in between, the universe is whispering, you're safe to feel again. Not because love will never hurt, but because you've changed. You've grown into someone who understands that vulnerability is not weakness. That being open doesn't mean being exposed, it means being available. And when your availability is rooted in self-respect rather than longing, the people you attract will feel very different from those in the past. If you're single, you may sense a presence around you, someone whose energy feels like home even before words are spoken. They may not arrive with grand gestures, but with consistency. With a frequency that calms rather than excites your nervous system. This is what it means to be met at the right level, not in fantasy, but in emotional reality. And if you're already in a relationship, this is the time for renewal. For returning to softness. A conversation that's been delayed may finally unfold with mutual understanding. A tension that once lingered may melt into resolution, not because it was forced, but because space was made for it to be seen. There's also an internal love story unfolding, the one between you and yourself. And perhaps, that's the most sacred one of all. Writing a letter to yourself each morning, even just a sentence, becomes an act of remembering. Remembering that your worth does not rise or fall based on how others treat you. That you are already enough, not in theory, but in the way your breath enters the body without needing permission. The number 222, often seen as a sign of soul-aligned connection, harmony, and divine timing, may appear around you now as a gentle nudge. It's not a coincidence. It's an invitation. To open again. To soften. To believe, without clinging. In teachings that emphasize non-attachment and mindful living, there's a concept that the most fulfilling relationships are not built on possession, but on presence. You don't need to hold someone tightly to know they love you. You just need to be fully with them, and with yourself, in each shared moment. When you stop striving to be loved and start embodying love itself, relationships shift naturally. The right ones stay. The others gently dissolve. So Leo, breathe into your chest. Place a hand over your heart. Say to yourself, I choose to love in a way that nourishes me. Because this month, it's not about chasing love. It's about becoming a space where love has no reason to run. Healing doesn't always arrive as a dramatic transformation. Sometimes, it unfolds in the quiet moments, the ones when no one is watching, and yet something deep within you begins to shift. This is where you are now, Leo. You're entering a space that isn't about proving or performing. It's about remembering. Remembering the light that you are, not because someone reflected it back to you, but because you've finally become still enough to feel it again. The energy of the star card is gentle but profound. It arrives after disruption, after confusion, and it doesn't offer quick answers. What it offers is a return, not to who you used to be, but to a version of you that's been waiting patiently under the surface, untouched by judgment, expectation, or noise. This is the part of your journey where the external world begins to quiet down and the internal landscape becomes louder, not in chaos, but in clarity. You may begin to notice more synchronicities, moments of intuitive knowing, or an urge to be in solitude. These are not signs that you're isolating, they're signs that you're integrating. Growth doesn't always mean movement. Sometimes it means stillness that deepens. There's an ancient truth that suggests when the mind settles, the truth surfaces. And in this space, Leo, you're being offered the opportunity to tune back into that truth, not as a concept, but as a lived experience. What you're being called to heal now isn't a wound you can point to. It's subtler. It's the part of you that still believes you need to earn your worth. That you must shine in a certain way to be valid. But the kind of light the star speaks of isn't about spotlight, it's about source. It's the internal glow that comes from accepting yourself, even when you're unseen. Even when you're uncertain. It's the strength of a candle in a dark room, small, yes, but steady. Enough. One practice that supports this kind of healing is gentle self-recognition. Try this: turn off your phone, light a candle, and sit with yourself. Write down 3 things you're ready to forgive, not because you did something wrong, but because you've carried the weight of old guilt for too long. Then write 3 things you're truly proud of, not accomplishments, but moments when you were kind, honest, or brave. Read them aloud. Let them land. Say to yourself, I am returning to my original light. And mean it. Numerologically, the number 17 is associated with miracles born from faith, not blind faith, but faith cultivated through lived resilience. It speaks to a seed that sprouts only when the time is right. You don't need to force your blooming. You just need to stay rooted. The law of attraction responds not just to what we think, but to what we continuously dwell in. So choose thoughts that honor the Leo you're becoming, thoughts that reflect dignity, trust, and joyful anticipation. Colors like indigo, deep, calming, and intuitive, can support you in this process. Wearing or surrounding yourself with this color can help you tune into your own guidance without needing external confirmation. It's a color of insight, of focus, and of inner alignment. If solitude has felt confronting lately, ask yourself what part of it feels difficult. Is it the silence, or what the silence reveals? Often, what we fear about being alone is not the absence of others, but the presence of our own unprocessed truths. But once we begin to sit with them, not judge them, we discover that solitude doesn't have to be lonely. It can be the most honest conversation you'll ever have. And from that conversation, Leo, something luminous begins to rise, steady, unshakable, and fully yours. Clarity is a quiet kind of power. It doesn't arrive with fanfare or dramatic signs. It emerges slowly, often after a period of uncertainty, and once it does, it becomes the foundation from which meaningful action is born. The energy of the Ace of Swords paired with the Three of Wands speaks to this exact moment, a threshold, a turning point, a breath before movement. For Leo, this part of your journey is not about reacting impulsively or forcing something into existence. It's about aligning with what is already true for you, and then taking action from that grounded place. It can be tempting to wait for the perfect conditions. To believe that before we take the first step, everything must be figured out, everything must be safe. But what if the first step is what creates the clarity? The Ace of Swords reminds you that your mind is sharper than you think, not just in logic, but in inner knowing. That intuitive hit you've been ignoring? That idea that keeps returning when everything else is quiet? It's not random. It's a thread meant to be followed. And when you combine it with the expansive vision of the Three of Wands, you begin to understand that what lies ahead isn't a test, but an invitation. One of the most transformative principles found in ancient wisdom is the idea that hesitation often stems not from uncertainty, but from fear of change. Not because change is inherently bad, but because it demands the death of what is familiar. That version of you who once needed permission, who delayed dreams out of self-protection, they're not wrong, they're just outdated. And now you get to choose differently. Not recklessly, but intentionally. Action rooted in self-awareness is never wasteful. It becomes the match that lights a series of unseen torches further down the path. If you've been delaying something, a decision, a conversation, a commitment to yourself, this is the time to ask why. Write down the 3 things you've postponed the longest, and instead of judging yourself for the delay, thank that past version of you for surviving long enough to hand the baton over. Then choose one to begin. Not to finish. Just to begin. Small movements matter. They tell the universe you're no longer waiting to be rescued, you're willing to meet your fate halfway. And as you take that step, remember to honor those who have walked beside you. Gratitude is not just polite, it's energetic. A sincere thank you, even if unspoken, keeps the heart open and the channels of support clear. Sometimes, a blessing arrives not through hustle, but through grace. Through the softness of your willingness to acknowledge what has already been given. Affirm to yourself, I am the author of my destiny. I choose to participate in my becoming. Let that be your compass. Let it guide your words, your choices, your posture. You are not passive in the face of your potential. You are a co-creator, and the page is open. And if you feel, even slightly, that something is waiting just beyond the edge of what you know, you're probably right. New beginnings rarely scream. They whisper. They ask for your attention, your courage, your readiness. So if something in you is stirring right now, if your chest feels a little lighter or your breath a little deeper, don't ignore that. It may just be the door you've been waiting for. Open it gently. And walk through. If you're still here with me, Leo, it means you're not just curious, you're awakening. There's a part of you that recognizes this message not as something new, but as something long forgotten returning to the surface. This isn't just about hearing guidance, it's about remembering who you were before fear crept in, before doubt became familiar, before you began dimming your own light just to make others more comfortable. And now, in the middle of May, you are being given a clear moment, a pause in the noise, to choose again. Not everything that appears as luck is coincidence. Sometimes, it's the quiet reward for all the invisible work you've done, the inner healing, the nights you stayed true to your heart, the boundaries you finally held, the truth you dared to speak. This kind of luck isn't random. It's a mirror. It reflects back the frequency you've stepped into. So if abundance, clarity, or a new connection arrives this week, take a deep breath and receive it. Because the version of you that called it in is the same version that's now ready to live it fully. But nothing changes unless you choose. The door may be open, but you still have to walk through it. So here's the question only you can answer: will you step forward? Will you honor your evolution by acting in alignment with it? Or will you wait for another sign, another reading, another reassurance, while life quietly passes by? The truth is, Leo, you've always had the courage. It's never been about waiting for the right time, it's been about giving yourself permission. And if no one has said it to you yet, let me be the one to say, you are ready. You don't need more validation. You don't need to be more perfect. You simply need to begin, as you are, with what you have, from where you stand. So before you go, take a moment. Ask yourself, what would shift in my life if I truly believed I was supported, not just by others, but by something greater that lives within me? What's one small step I can take this week that moves me closer to that belief, that energy, that life? I invite you to share in the comments what angel number has been following you lately. Maybe it's 111, 222, 818, or something else that won't stop showing up. These numbers are not just patterns. They are confirmations, markers of alignment, and reminders that you are not walking this path alone. And if this video stirred something in you, a thought, a hope, a plan you've been holding in silence, then let it be the spark, not just another scroll in your feed. Like this video if it resonated. Subscribe to Eternal Mindfulness if you're ready to walk this journey with intention. Share this with someone whose light deserves to shine again. Because when we rise together, our courage multiplies. Your light is not here to compete. It's here to guide. And someone, somewhere, is waiting to see the real you shine. So, are you ready to let them?